Today, I'd like to share with you the main teachings from the Bhagavad Gita. After reading the Bhagavad Gita many times, these are the main core principles and practices that I have felt to be the most powerful. And I really feel is like the summary of the entire teaching. Of course, what I share with you today is going to completely fail to capture the essence of the Gita, but I will do my best to be as candid as possible and share from my own experience with the teachings and just try to bring forth some primary main overall themes of the Gita that the entire teaching of Krishna revolves around. So, really looking forward to today's video. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Sunny Sharma. Here on this channel, we study and practice the teachings of the Gita with great devotion. This channel was a passion project, and it brings me great joy to make these Gita videos multiple times per week. So if you're new here and you are a lover and a practitioner of Krishna's teachings, then I invite you to subscribe and join us frequently. So let's get right into it. I'm going to go one by one and in no particular order, but we'll just talk about the teachings as a whole. So the first thing I have written here in my notes, this is what I want to begin with because I think this is also what Krishna begins with in chapter 2, which is the first bit of instruction that he gives to Arjuna. The first main teaching is we have to make self-realization our main goal in life. This is so important because if you'll see throughout the Gita, Krishna is inviting us to live a certain way, to go about life a certain way. To do this, we cannot only live for the world. Meaning, if you observe your ways of being before we encountered the spiritual path, it was just all about what can I achieve in the world? What next experience can I have? What next pleasure can I experience? It's all about getting my way, getting benefit for me and mine, so that I can feel good. I can feel better about myself. I can become a bigger, better person. I can improve my position in society. I can be safe. When all of our energy is being spent in heightening and securing this me, then we literally cannot live in the way that Krishna is suggesting. We cannot practice the way Krishna is suggesting. So if we wish to live the words of the Lord, if we wish to practice Krishna's teaching, we have to make self-realization our main goal and ultimately the only thing that matters to us. Because then everything we do in life can become an avenue to that, can become the way to that, can become our arena of practice so that we can grow in the wisdom of self-knowledge. So the first thing is make self-realization your main goal. He tells Arjuna this in chapter 2. He tells him the root of your suffering is ignorance. You do not know your true nature. What you're going through is not just about, hey, what can you do in this situation to solve your suffering? You need to find out your true nature. You need to take up the path of yoga. That's what he tells Arjuna. And we are Arjuna. When Krishna speaks to Arjuna, he's speaking to us, the spiritual seeker. So let's go on to number 2. Action is a way to purify the mind and reach self-realization. This is such a different way of looking at action because even when we embark on the spiritual path, we feel that, hey, I have my spiritual life and then I have my personal life. I have my spiritual journey and my goal, and then my career, my friendships, my relationships, my personal life is separate from that. Here, Krishna tells us to look at it the complete opposite way. He says, like, your quest for self-knowledge is not different than acting in the world also. He says the goal of knowledge and the goal of action is the same, self-realization. So of course you have your spiritual practices where you surrender to God, you meditate on God, you read scripture, you do your best to practice the teachings. But you have to make your work, Krishna says, your spiritual practice. You have to use your work. You have to use all of your action, not just what you do in your career, but all of your action throughout the day as a means of self purification. How do we use action as a means of self purification? Krishna tells us we have to do everything in the world without selfish attachment. Krishna tells us that selfish desire is the enemy of wisdom. This was such a powerful statement. I forget from which chapter, but it really stuck with me because it is so true. When I reflected in my own life, I saw it is so true that like it is because I am so attached in what I want in the world, what outcome I'm trying to secure, what outcome I'm trying to avoid. It's because of my whole focus just being worldly out in the world of the senses that I can't meditate, that I can't practice what Krishna is saying. So this was such a big like awakening moment for me that I need to care first and foremost, mostly about self-realization. Everything else has value relatively, but superficial value. I surrender to God in terms of all that. I care mostly about self-realization. And then that I also have to make my action in the world all about doing what needs to be done, but not having any specific attachment as to what outcome it must create. So Krishna tells us, work without attachment. Surrender the fruits of your labor to God. Krishna tells us you have the right to work, but you do not have the right to the fruits of your labor. That depends entirely on God, your destiny, karma. It is much more fruitful if you work without attachment, because then you are not bound. Whether things go well or not, you will be at peace and happy. He says only those who work without selfish attachment reach the goal of self-realization. So work without attachment, work to serve others, work for the good of others, not just of yourself, and make your form of work service to the Creator. So whoever you are helping with your work, that, like make that a form of service, right? So you are doing it and you don't need anything in return. This doesn't mean you go to work tomorrow and you tell them, oh, I don't need a salary from you. No, not necessarily. But it does mean that, your work, the day by day things you do, you're no longer polluting that action with selfish attachment to getting more and more, to reaching a certain place that like you must get to, otherwise you're going to be deeply unhappy. You're no longer trying to control outcomes. It's okay to work towards something. It's okay to work for a salary. That is also God taking care of you, providing resources to you. But to be attached to them is a different thing. So try to create that balance. Of course, our life in a world is a constant exchange of energy, give and take, give and take. Now we must make our giving free from the pollution of selfish attachment. In this way, we make action our spiritual practice, and our movements in the world are no longer separate from our spiritual path. They become our spiritual path. How wonderful. So next point, the next main teaching is love God above all else. Make your life a love letter to God. Make everything you do an offering to God. Krishna tells us that those who love me, who have faith in me, who see me as their only protector, their only refuge, their only source, their creator, their wealth, their greatest treasure, who want me and nothing else, though they come to me. Those are the ones I rescue from this cycle of birth and death. So we are to, little by little, do our best to become more and more one pointed in our love of God, in our love of truth, and everything we do in the world, whether it is making videos or eating food, preparing food, going on a walk, looking at nature. It's like we see God everywhere. We see everything as God's expression. We make everything we do as like a form of service to the Creator. We don't need anything from anything anymore. We are happy with what is. We see God in all of our pleasures and pains, successes and failures, in the good and the bad. The world of material objects, the world of the senses, we see its fleeting nature. We're no longer so invested in just what we can create here. Instead, we let God dictate that, and we live in total contentment with what God gives us. And that itself is like we do that out of love for God. This sort of connects to the first teaching about making self-realization your main goal. It goes hand in hand. When you love God so much, naturally self-realization is your main goal. When self-realization becomes your main goal, the love of God naturally matures. When you work in the world without attachment, the love of God naturally matures. You can sing songs about God, you can meditate on God, you can see God in others, you can write poems on God, you can preach God's teaching and try to share it with people. Whatever way you are inspired to express your love for God, you do that. But the more and more, God is on your mind, God is in your heart, and you're remembering God's presence, that's the best. And it's really beneficial for us in this journey. So let's move on to number 4. Krishna tells us, make yourself even minded in all the dualities of life. It is those who are not attached who received the gift of wisdom. So live life without attachment and aversion, and remain even minded in all the dualities of life. You see, when we love God most and self-realization is our main goal, then we can allow this life journey, which is full of tons of dualities, like ups and downs you go through in life. One day you have it all, the next moment you lose it all. One day your relationship is great, the next day it may be challenged. One day your body is nice and healthy, and the next day it breaks down. One day you are rich and wealthy, right? And the next day you have a financial crisis. Krishna tells us fortune and misfortune, no matter what you're experiencing, go through it without resistance, doing what you need to do, and remain even minded in all experiences. Don't lose yourself to prosperity and success, and don't lose yourself to failure and security. Don't get caught up in pride. Don't get caught up in insecurity. Krishna tells us those who are even minded through the thick and thin, good and bad, they are the ones who I bestow wisdom to, clarity to. Life will give you plenty of opportunities to practice this. If your love of God is true, then you will remember more and more frequently to remain even minded, to not get carried away. Stay centered, established in God's presence within, which is always the same. Okay. Let's move on to number 5. Krishna tells us, do your duty and be true to the role you are born into in this life, without resistance, without suffering. Right? In the Gita, Krishna is telling Arjuna, hey, you were born into being a warrior. And even though you are so conflicted with, killing your family members, this is something you have to do because this is your responsibility. Dharma is such a beautiful teaching. It goes beyond all notions of what is right and wrong, what is spiritual or not spiritual. Life sometimes puts us in situations where right and wrong becomes like you can't understand it from the outside perspective. You may be doing something, upholding your own dharma, and someone from the outside may be looking at you saying that, oh, that's the wrong thing to do. Or or you may be acting in a way which is so true to you, but someone on the outside is like, oh, that's not spiritual, that's not real, that's not um like virtuous. But then you are doing what is true to you, what is authentic, what feels right for the situation, what the situation of your particular life demands. And so that is what we have to do. That's what Krishna tells us. Uphold your dharma, uphold your responsibility, your role in life, play your role, do what life is requiring of you to do. Be intuitive, see what is required in this situation, confront it, do it without resistance, without suffering, and do it for the Lord alone. This is such an enlightening teaching. It is vague, it is subtle, it is hard to practice. But little by little, as we devote ourselves to living in this way, doing all these practices, meditating every day, working selflessly, making self-realization our main goal, then little by little, it becomes clearer what our dharma is in every situation. Your dharma is not limited to your occupation. It is not just one thing. Your dharma can be something that changes with the seasons of life. It can be beyond your occupation. It can be something like serving a family member in need, and that is what is required of you for the moment, or taking care of a child, or doing some social work, or just doing your job at work, or running your business. Whatever it may be, whatever life is requiring of you, do it. Do it as a form of service to the Creator. Do it without selfish attachment. And even when others fail to understand you, even when others fail to understand your path and why you're doing what you're doing, always stay true to yourself. Stay authentic. And do it regardless of needing others to understand you. Don't need others to understand you. Source your comfort, your security, your happiness from God within. God is your only refuge. All right. So the last teaching I have for you today that Krishna tells us, he says, train your mind to rest in the self. He says the mind is so fragmented, lost in the world, constantly anxious, fearful, full of selfish desire. So we have to train the mind to rest in the self. The self, Krishna says, is the center of spiritual consciousness, which we can also say is I am. The unchanging awareness, which is always present, which we feel in every moment as myself. Krishna, in one of the chapters, I believe it's chapter 13, he refers to this as Purusha, the eternal witness, the unchanging witness. Whereas everything else, including the body and mind, are prakriti, the realm of the gunas. So our one of our main practices is to bring the mind inward, train it to rest in the self, which means resting as the witness, the wordless, thoughtless witness of all that comes and goes. Krishna says, there is no reality in the impermanent. Reality lies in the unchanging, eternal self. So Krishna advises us to discern between the unchanging reality, which is Krishna himself. He is the source of all. He is the inner self of all. He is the witness. So discern between that and all that comes and goes. He says, don't invest your sense of security, your sense of self, your sense of happiness in what comes and goes. He says, Krishna says, the wise do not look for happiness in the world of the senses. So we train the mind to rest in the self. We meditate every day. Here on the channel, the recommendation is always sit twice for meditation every day. See it as your appointment with God. So look, all of these practices, and I'm sure there's more teachings in the Gita, right? And of course, we'll cover all of these teachings in various different ways in the videos on this channel in the future. We'll go more deeper into each one of these. These are hard to practice. In case you need support and help, check out our study group down below in case that would be of interest to you. Over there, we practice these together and we meet every week to discuss our experiences and do a Q&A where we can overcome certain challenges. We also have the Gita course there. So I invite you to join that. But this is the overall teaching of the Gita. I'm sure I missed certain things, so feel free to add it in the comments below, whatever you think I missed, so that we can make the comments a place of like all these Gita teachings that every viewer can read and go through as well. Yeah, the Gita teachings absolutely changed my life. They brought such clarity, peace, humility, and devotion in my experience, and I'll be forever grateful, which is why it's such a passion of mine to share them with you here. So I hope this video helped you. Let me know what sort of other Gita related content you'd like me to make. I do always look at the comments and try to make those videos. Thanks for tuning in today. See you next time.